Welcome back, everybody. My name is Harry Langdon, and responding to your comments, a lot of people have asked me how I got started in photography. And it's kind of a long story, but I'm going to be brief and tell you what inspired me in my work. And originally I started photographing still lifes and immovable objects, and then people started asking me to photograph them as for their own portraits and things. So I had to learn a lot more about portrait photography. So I started studying some of the famous portrait photographers that were happening then meaning in the 40s and 50s and 60s, because they were real classics. There was Carsham Ottawa, there was Francesco Scavullo, there was Richard Avedon, and all these men I admired a great deal. Annie Leibovitz, by the way, I don't want to leave her out. And so these were inspiring to me. And so, but I had to start out with meager beginnings. I didn't have very expensive equipment. I just had just a basic, like a box camera, so to speak. And these photographers I mentioned were using usually larger format. Large format means the film size they were photographing, usually on film, was larger, so it had a higher resolution. And so this is the way I started in photography, with high resolution, large format cameras. Some of you will understand what I'm talking about. One of the photographers I admired that was very popular in the 40s and 50s was George Hurrell. George Hurrell did this portrait, and it was a typical classic still picture. Still has a connotation to it as not moving, and the clients that used to be in front of the camera in the old days were actors that were disciplined actors that were accustomed to getting up in front of the camera, standing on a spot on the floor and not moving. And so, because the cameras of yesteryear had very slow shutter speeds, maybe a 25th of a second. Now our shooting sessions are done at a thousandth of a second. But anyway, I'll get back into the technical stuff later. So anyway, so I admired these photographers, and I started trying to get equipment and study with a photographer that was from that school, so to speak. And it usually was done in black and white. These were photographers that were adept at photographing in black and white. Black and white takes a lot of skill, because in order to get the subject to separate from background, one had to use something called chiaroscuro. I'm not going to bother to try to spell that one, but it's the interplay between lights and darks and blacks and whites, and so I studied that a great deal. And so when we started getting a color subject, meaning there was a subject would come in and we see them in color, we had to transpose that color into black and white. We had to see how red lipstick separated from a skin color and blonde hair from a gray background. It took a lot of skill. I'm not going to bother to get into that. But anyway, these photographers inspired me in the beginning. And even though when I started, I was in my early 30s, there were new innovations in photography coming up now. Now the new innovations were not hot studio lights, as they call them, hot tungsten lights. Something new innovation came in the 30s, in the 50s, called strobe lights. So what I did was I thought, strobes. And so I started investigating strobe lights, because strobe lights have the ability to freeze a person's action. notoriously being photographing golfers swinging at their golf balls, and baseball players that freeze their bat in air. Now this is important because in those days, back in the 50s and the 30s, these, as I said, are disciplined actors that wouldn't mind holding still for a second or two. Then what I discovered was that new human being of today were people that liked pictures in motion. They wanted to be in action because they were actors that looked really good when they were in motion. And so the object I found was to freeze these performers in a moment in time where they're moving, so to speak, while their expressions were moving. They were laughing and they were dancing and they're swinging their hair and doing so. But we weren't able to do that with these kind of cameras that these guys used. Okay, so I took it upon myself to study this lighting that these gentlemen or women used in those days and translate it into modern day technology, smaller film cameras, Rolleiflex, 35 millimeter Nikons, and cameras that weren't so static that you could hand hold them, which was an important feature that was a new innovation in the early 50s, 60s. And so I prided myself in being able to with modern technology, to use the lighting that I developed with my strobes and make it look like this Hurrell lighting. Here's another sample of a Hurrell picture. This picture of the subject in this picture stood still for at least a quarter of a second while he took the picture. Here's another Hurrell picture, a typical Hurrell picture, where it's a beautiful picture, beautiful lighting, but it wasn't frozen moments in time where the subject was moving. And so what I thought what I'll do is, again, use that kind of lighting, but part of what made his these lighting, was the shadows. They used intense, bright Fresnel lens lights on the subject, and in order to get the black and white to print really well, and newspapers, by the way, in black and white, they had to get hard edges and deep shadows, which is kind of dangerous with a woman or a man as well. But here's one that I did, though, is a real good example where I translated Hurrell lighting into a modern day young woman. As you all, I'm sure, recognize Angelina Jolie. I got the shadows, the Hurrell shadows. I got the highlights in her hair and her head, and she was probably moving real fast at this point because, again, she's one of these active women of today. And so this is a good example of how I translated the Hurrell lighting into modern technology. Also, there's other photographers that used a similar kind of lighting. Richard Avedon and Francesco Scuvullo were mainly adept at black and white pictures, which is really an art. So when I started photographing people in color, I had to capture that same type of hard edge look to it, but I had to get that Hurrell lighting, even though this is a picture of Kelly Rutherford. And you can see now that Hurrell lighting that I got using strobes. The smoke was frozen, Kelly was frozen in motion. And so it felt very successfully. I captured that. It took a lot of work to adapt modern technology. Here's another example of one of my shots that Barbara Carrera, where I used that Hurrell hard edge lighting in black and white It's quite stunning, by the way, and this has a lot of impact, almost more than if it was in color. And here's another one I did of Lucia Mendez. It's kind of a good example of the Hurrell pose and all that, and it was the Hurrell lighting. So these are all excerpts from my book, and you may want to look on Amazon Books to get my book called Harry Langdon's Hollywood. And so what I successfully was able to do was accumulate a new group of clients that were after this kind of like a contemporary, fast-moving lighting where I could photograph people in action and get spontaneous expressions by using strobe that look like the Hurrell lighting. And people really like that. And so another new innovations have occurred in photography. Obviously, shooting with digital now is a wonderful new innovation. So immediately we can see on the camera back what the picture is going to look like. And so it's a lot of fun to be able to go through a range of different types of lightings on a photo session, from Hurrell lighting, Avedon lighting, and it's become Harry Langdon's lighting, and I see a lot of people trying to capture my type of lighting, but the demands are there. It's pretty extreme. You have to have really top-notch photo equipment. You have to be able to work with computers, technology, and Photoshop. And it's a wonderful place to be for me, and using modern day technology. I'm also studying a lot about holography and other new innovations in still photography, where I can even move into a new realm, capturing, photographing people. And so I thought that might be interesting for you to see where my beginnings were with the old school lighting, which is really beautiful, but it's awfully static, into the new, important, vibrant people of today. They're action people. They're charged with a lot of motivation and want impactful shots. And so I hope that was interesting to you, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next segment of Harry Langdon's for photography techniques. And I really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. I really love it. And you followers, I see there all the time. And so I look forward to seeing you on another episode of Harry Langdon's photography sessions. Bye, everybody.